Hey, what's up, people? Piz out here, and continuing my series, The Lost, in which I discuss lesser known, more obscure movies that I think deserve to be seen. Today I want to talk to you guys about the 1980s BMX underdog classic, RAD. And let me just say, before I get too deep into this video, how many awesome underdog stories did the 80s give us? I can just name a dozen of them off the top of my head right now. But what's sad is, of those dozen awesome underdog 80s movies, RAD is the only one that has yet to receive an official DVD or Blu-ray release in the US. And that is an absolute crying shame when you consider the fact that RAD is so beloved by its fans. RAD has such a cult following that if a company released a really nice collector's edition Blu-ray of the film, it would sell like gangbusters. So I'm not sure why we don't have an official DVD or Blu-ray release of the film in the US. It's out there, it's on HD, it's played on certain movie channels. You can get bootlegs of it, I think, in HD, etc., etc. But I'm assuming there's some sort of rights issue, either with the film itself, either with the soundtrack, or just whoever owns the rights to the film, they just don't want to give it up, or, you know, I don't know. But it's an absolute crying shame because RAD is just a rad movie. It's an awesome movie. It's one of those movies of the 80s that I rented a lot. Now, I didn't rent it as much as I rented, like, you know, The Lost Boys or The Monster Squad or you know, films like that. But RAD was one of those movies that I rented a lot growing up. And I think even as a kid, there was something about the film that I tapped into. You know, maybe because, you know, I was from a small town, and the character in the film, Crew Jones, he's from a small town, and he wants more out of life. I think even as a kid, you know, there was something about that I tapped into, and I could definitely feel that in the film, and that made me really like the character of Crew Jones and really root for him. And I think even with a lot of the underdog films, RAD was really one of them. It's probably the least known of that dozen that I talked about at the beginning of the video. But it's one that, you know, spoiler alert, when Crew does win in the end, I mean, I just felt like, yes, you know, it felt like a victory for me too. I don't know, it's weird, you know. We're talking about films that you loved as a kid and why you loved them as a kid. Now as an adult, you kind of like, wow. But, you know, it's a film that has a lot of nostalgic value for me, as it does for so many people who grew up in the same era that I did. Of course, the video store era, etc., etc. But RAD is the story of a young man by the name of Crew Jones from a small town. He wants to be a professional BMXer. And it just so happens that the Mongoose Corporation, they're bringing the big Hell Track to his small town. And Hell Track is kind of the Indy 500 for the BMX scene. So Crew goes over his mother's head. She wants him to focus on his studies and on his SATs. So he goes over his mother's head with the help of his younger sister, who's older beyond her years. He overcomes all the obstacles put before him by the evil president of the Mongoose Corporation, by the jerk professional BMXers who stand in his way, and of course he wins in the end. A simple story, a great underdog story, but there's so much more to RAD than just that. RAD has all the awesome accoutrements of a great 80s movie. I'm talking about, first and foremost, the soundtrack. The music in this movie is absolutely phenomenal. A great soundtrack. And that may be, like I said, one of the problems with the film being released is the fact that there's rights issues with the soundtrack, because they can't just take out any piece of music from the movie and replace it with something else, because it just, with another song or whatever, because it wouldn't be the same movie. There's one of the greatest sequences probably ever filmed in the history of filmmaking that takes place in RAD. I'm talking about the bike dance between Crew Jones and Lori Loughlin's character during this dance at the school, and they're playing Send Me an Angel, and the bike dance it goes on throughout the entire course of the song, Send Me an Angel. That's one of the greatest sequences ever in film history. There's a lot of great montages in RAD, accompanied by really awesome 80s music. As a matter of fact, a lot of RAD is montages. There's a lot of montages going on in RAD, but I don't mind because they're really cool montages and there's great music accompanying them. I really like the characters in the film. I love Crew Jones, played by Bill Allen. I love Lori Loughlin, who is she's a professional BMXer in the movie. She's also kind of Crew Jones's love interest. Mr. Hand is in the film from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. The evil president of Mongoose does a great job. The mayor of this town is just creepy as all get out. He looks like the dude from Human Centipede 2. Just creepy as all get out. The BMX sequences in the movie, I gotta tell you, I was no BMXer as a kid, but I had a BMX freestyle bike. That was the very first bike I got, and I have to attribute a lot of the scarring on my body that happened while riding that bike to the film RAD. Because you watch RAD, you go out in the street, or at least I did. I went out in the street and I sustained scrapes and cuts and skinned knees and skinned elbows and skinned other various body parts that you don't want to hear about. My shirt, RAD Racing. I love RAD. I love this film. This is a kick-ass 80s movie. It's so much fun to watch. The music, just the look of the movie, the characters, the montages, the classic underdog story, the fact that this is a BMX movie and there was a time and place in the 80s where you could make a BMX movie called RAD. Actually, the original title of the movie was Balls Out. Could you imagine if my shirt said Balls Out Racing on it? That would be awesome. But RAD is just RAD. And again, it's an absolute crying shame that this movie does not have an official DVD or Blu-ray release in the U.S. Such a travesty. This movie deserves to be seen. If you've not seen RAD, I'm not a proponent of bootlegging or anything like that, but try and track down RAD. Try and find a good copy of RAD. There are HD versions of RAD out there. If you look, you can find them. If you've seen RAD, please let me know what you think of it in the comment section below. If you're a child of the VHS era, I'm sure you have a lot to share about RAD. If you were someone like me who rented RAD on the regular. So yeah. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. As always, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace.